I begin by praising God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, and I thank him for giving us the opportunity to explore tonight together his plan of salvation for all humankind. What is the Quranic doctrine of human salvation before God? The Quran tells us that God created human beings for a purpose. That purpose is said as worshiping God. And in Islam, the idea of worship is more comprehensive than just simply involving in prayers. We see our whole life as a worship of God, and living under God's rule and law and trying to please God is our way of worshiping God continuously, not just simply during the prayers. We understand that this worship will continue in paradise, where we will live in God's presence, and our worship then will be as natural as our breathing. The Quran also tells us in Surah 11, verse number 119, that God created humankind for his mercy. لِذَلِكَ خَلَقَهُمْ. He created them for that, for his mercy. So God's plan then is to extend his mercy to humankind. But Surah 7, verse number 156, warns us that that mercy will be given to those people who fear God, who pay the charity, and in basic terms, who try to be good before God. The Quran shows us that God created human beings on what we refer to as the fitra, or the natural way. And the Quran enjoins upon us that we should keep our faces straight on that path of the fitra, or the natural way. I envision this as if God has put all human beings on, let's say, one straight highway leading to paradise. But that highway has many exit lanes. And at these exit lanes, there are callers trying to persuade us to take these exits. So imagine us going along the 401 towards paradise, if I should use the human example. And there is the promise of the city lights. There's the glitter and glamour of the city lights, and billboards inviting us, promising us wine, women, and song, if you like. And some people will take these exits. And then God sends messengers and prophets to call these people back to the original highway, to lead them back to paradise. Some of the people will come back, but eventually people will become so caught up in what they're doing, so addicted to their sins, that they will not listen to the prophets and messengers. These are the people about whom the Quran says that God has sealed their hearts. In fact, the Quran says, بَلْ رَانَ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Their hearts are sealed and rusted because of the evil of what they used to do. So in other words, people trap themselves away from the mercy of God. Naturally, we cannot blame God for what people have done for themselves. But God's grace is there, extending to humankind again and again. And God promises his forgiveness to anyone who would turn back to him repentant and seeking forgiveness for their sins. If anyone should die in that state of sin, it is still in God's prerogative, we learn from the Quran and from the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that he can actually forgive human beings. There is one sin that the Quran speaks about as the unforgivable sin. That is the sin of ascribing partners to God. Considering that God is, let's say that there are other beings to be worshipped in addition to, alongside with God, or instead of God. But when the Quran speaks about the punishments that God has in store for human beings, or when the Quran uses threats, or the Quran says that God does not love certain people, Muslim scholars take this to mean that God is trying in some way to reach out to these people who need threats, who need something harsh to be said to them to bring them back to the right path. On the other hand, we understand that in fact God in some way loves all human beings, and he wants to extend his mercy to all human beings. But he speaks harshly to some. So the idea here is that God threatens human beings, that look, if you're not good, I don't love you, in order to bring them back. Even human parents do that sometimes. Sometimes we say, look, if you don't shape up, you're not my son, in order to bring that child back to the right way. Now, is it difficult to earn salvation in the Islamic understanding? I would say no. The Quran speaks about the scales being weighed. If one scale is heavy with good deeds as compared with evil deeds, then one enters paradise. Is it easy to earn good deeds? Yes. In fact, Muslims think about the intention that we have to do a good. And there is a hadith related from the Prophet Muhammad that he said that if a person intends to do a good deed, it is immediately written for him in his records that he has done it. Or rather, to correct myself, it is written for him as a full good deed. And if he actually does it, then it's written for him as 10 times or even 700 times, or somewhere in between. If, on the other hand, he intends to do an evil, it is not written for him, or against him rather, until he does it. And when he does it, it is written against him as one evil. But if in fact he turned away from that intention and he did not complete that evil act, then it is written for him as a full good deed. So then, salvation in Islam then, if we understand Islam properly, is in fact very easy and is open to anyone who would want to seek that salvation. Of course, if somebody does not want to seek that salvation and he wishes to turn away, then this is something for which he will or she will have no one to blame but oneself. The Quran in fact speaks about salvation in some very general terms as requiring almost just simply in a nutshell belief in God. For example, in Surah 41, in verse number 30, the Quran says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا رَبُّنَا اللَّهُ ثُمَّ اسْتَقَامُوا تَتَنَزِّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. As for those who say, my Lord is Allah alone, the angels, and they remain steadfast upon that, then the angels would descend upon such person and say to them, you shall have no fear nor grief coming upon you, but in fact have good news. وَأَبْشِرُوا بِالْجَنَّةِ الَّتِي كُنْتُمْ تُوعَدُونَ. But have good news of the paradise which has been prepared for you. So only belief in God is mentioned here, and being steadfast on that belief in God. There is a hadith in Sahih Muslim which says that the Prophet Muhammad said that whoever dies knowing that there is no God but Allah will enter paradise. But Muslim scholars want to make sure that people do not get away with the wrong understanding, that we can just simply say, yeah, I believe and I have nothing to do, and I'll be saved. So Muslim scholars emphasize those verses, and in fact the Quran itself emphasizes that Muslims should not just simply say they believe, but they should follow up that belief with action. In fact, reason also dictates that our actions will flow out of our belief. And if we have a firm belief and a proper commitment with God, then the actions we perform will actually show whether our commitment and belief is with God.